Thanks, Steve. We'll be seeing you guys.
Yeah, go Gators.
Oh, you got it. Freaking slow.
He still has great fire.
Guys, welcome back to the channel. Big Dog Brett, thanks so much for tuning in. We're going to go into the 2019 Florida Gators team and see if they hold up to the hype. Stay tuned. Welcome back, guys. So we're going to kind of jump into it. We're going to start out talking with the offense. Going to go to Felipe Franks. Felipe Franks is the returning quarterback from last year. Almost 2,300 yards in passing and 23 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, QBR rating 144. Not bad numbers. Certainly not elite. Looking at the other quarterbacks that are in and around the league, it's going to be pretty difficult for this guy to be able to show off some kind of amazing resilience to put him in the race to be a Heisman runner, that sort of thing. Now, Dan Mullen is supposed to be some super quarterback whisperer. We'll see how he does, but I got to see a lot more out of Felipe Franks for me to believe he's going to be the guy that's going to carry these guys to a national championship. Next set I'm going to talk about on the list. I'm a running back guy. I love running backs, so we're going to go through those guys real quick. They have a returner from last year, P. Ryan. If you guys watch football for the Florida Gators, you guys saw this guy get handed the ball quite a bit. Last year, out of 128 attempts, he averaged about 5.9 yards per carry. He's got 6 touchdowns, and came up and walked away with 750 yards total. That's not terrible. Those are serviceable numbers. Those are numbers that you can hand the ball off to, and you can expect that he's going to get some decent yardage. Keep in mind he was doing this behind a veteran offensive line, so we'll see how that goes. Now they did lose their 1B running back, which was Jordan Scarlett. He got drafted to the Panthers. He had 122 carries, just a few less, and 717 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he was really the sub-feature back, or whatever you want to call it. It was not uncommon to see them hand the ball off to him, have him jump out there, and pick up the other carries. Now, the third guy in this list was Dameon Pierce. Now, George Scarlett went to the Panthers, but Dameon Pierce is going to be back. He had 69 carries last year for 424 yards. These are not bad numbers either. Statistically speaking, they're slightly better than P. Ryan's numbers. They're going to be looking for him to pick up the slack. They're going to be looking for this guy to produce an additional probably close to 60 carries. Now, what that's going to mean is that they're going to have to find that third back if they continue to run in the same offensive style. They're going to have to find a third back to fill his role. So they've got to find somebody to pick up 60 to 70 carries in order to cover that opening they have right now. They got to fill that up. So losing a big running back like that can hurt if you don't have somebody who can immediately step up and fill those roles, especially on a team where you have a running back by committee and you don't have some super phenom stepping up. All right, so let's talk about one of the big things that is going to be a help to the Florida Gators, and that's going to be their receiving core. Now, their receiving core has Van Jefferson. He's coming back. He's a senior. Trevon Grimes, he's coming back. He's a junior. Josh Hammond, he's a senior. And Kadarius, or however, I think it's Kadarius. Tony, he's coming back. He's going to be a junior. Now, their receptions respectively run like this. Normally, I'll do a stat by line, but in this particular situation, I want to do it this way so you can see how similar all the numbers are. 35 receptions, 26 receptions, 28 receptions, 21 receptions respectively. Now, with yardage, there's 503 yards for Van Jefferson. So he's kind of the feature guy, their go-to guy, so to speak, and the rest of the guys' numbers are also similar. 364 yards, 369 yards, and 240 yards. 6 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. I mean, these guys are almost carbon copies. They're all long, tall guys. These guys can all step out there, go get these 50-50 balls. These are some veteran guys, and they're going to be looking to these guys for leadership on the team. The downside to this is that next year they're going to lose most, if not all, of these guys. So we're going to see how Dan Mullen does with swapping players in and out so that they get some proper play time, so they can get some experience in these bigger games as well. Okay, now one of the things, I don't need notes for this part, one of the things that is going to be a problem for the Florida Gators is that they have replaced, or had to replace, or are replacing their offensive line. They only have one guy coming back. That one guy is Nick Buchanan. Nick Buchanan is the center, so they're replacing left guard, left tackle, right tackle. Those four guys have very little playtime, and I mean very, very little playtime. Out of the past 3 years, and some of these guys have been on the team for 3 years, out of the past 3 years, the combined number of games played in is 16. Not started, played in. That's a problem. Your running backs were getting these numbers, 750 yards, 700 yards, behind a veteran offensive line. Now you have a really inexperienced offensive line. I'm not sure that these guys are going to be able to create these holes, create those gaps. Now, there are guys on this offensive line that are 300 pounds, but experience matters. And when you're playing against veteran defensive line, guys that are 300 pounds, but they have 3 more years of college experience on you, those are going to be really hard guys to stop. How is this new offensive line going to stand up to a veteran, an elite veteran linebacker squad? It's going to be tough. And so now Felipe Franks, even though they have a strong receiving core, is he going to have enough time to get that ball away, to make these passes, to look downfield, to look for these deep threats? You know, I mean, is that going to exist? Is that going to be there? I can't say for certainty that it can, just because this whole offensive line essentially is so new. You can't expect Nick Buchanan to block 6-7 guys. You just can't. It's not going to happen. I think that this is going to be a big problem for Florida. I mean, look at it this way. Out of playing in 16 games, and by the way, one of the guys hasn't played in any games. Out of these 16 games that were played, they didn't start. They were kind of swapped in and out, put in what they could here and there. So let's just say, for argument's sake, that these guys, since they didn't start, let's just say they played at least half a game. I highly doubt it was that much, but let's say it's half a game. At half a game, across 16 games, that's really only 8 full games across these guys in 3 years. That's basically 4 of them, the 4 of them starting in 2 games. That's how much experience they have. That's not a lot. That's like guys coming back this year that played in the last 2 games of last year. It's almost nothing. We'll see what happens. Big concern though. I'm not sure it's going to, not having an offensive line that is going to be able to perform super well against elite teams. I'm not sure you're going to be able to get the running game going. And number 2, I'm not sure you're going to give your quarterback enough time to get the passing game going. So I think that's a huge problem. You look back, let's look over the defense. So you've got Jabari Zuniga, who's a senior, 17 tackles, 6.5 sacks. Not the largest. He's not the sack leader on the team. He's actually in 2nd place, or was. That's a lot of sacks from one guy. It's really good, and it's a good thing he's coming back. But only 17 tackles. That's like 1 a game. It's not a lot. It's like 1.5 a game. So it's not killer numbers. And that's because all of that work was being done by Vazine Joseph. Sorry if I got your name wrong, dude. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I know I got his name right. Chikai Polite. Don't know if I got that right either. And David Reese. Pretty sure I got that one right. All of them except David Reese. Joseph Johnson and Polite went to the NFL. Bills, Saints, Jets. Gone. Linebacker, safety, defensive end. The reason that is important is because Polite was the team's leader in sacks at 11. 26 tackles, 11 sacks. That's huge. Then you got Gardner-Johnson, 3 sacks. It's pretty good. 33 tackles. That's huge. Then you've got the linebacker, Joseph, 4 sacks, 37 tackles. Those 3 guys make up for 18 sacks and almost 100 tackles. Those 3 guys. Gone. That's tough. That's hard to replace that kind of proficiency. Keep in mind that all of last year, the entire team had 32 sacks. 18 of them came from these 3 guys. So there's a huge void that's got to be filled there if they want to just maintain the same level of performance they had last year. David Reese is going to be a senior this year. He had 22 tackles, no sacks. Zuniga, 17 tackles, 6.5 sacks. A lot is going to fall on his shoulders. Not only does he still have to perform his 6.5, he's got to find a way to majorly cut into the 18 that just left. So he's got his work cut out for him. They've got to find a way to soak up 100 tackles and 18 sacks just to get to where they were last year in performance-wise. I mean, that's a lot. Coupled with the fact that the offensive line is really, really inexperienced. Coupled with the fact that they're losing a ton of great defensive guys this year. They're losing their second best running back, who you could argue who's just as good as their number 1 running back. They got a lot of holes to fill. Are they going to be able to do it? I don't know. I don't see any talent on the roster that's jumping out at me, or any performance from last year that's jumping out at me that's saying that these guys are going to be able to fill in all these holes. I just don't see it. And I'm trying to be as objective as possible. Obviously, I'm a Georgia fan, and I'm going to be, cheering for the Dogs. But at the same time, I have to look at something objectively and say, if we're going to play this team, what are we going to be up against? The offensive line isn't there. Georgia's biggest weakness is the interior of its defense. That's also the biggest weakness of Florida, is that its interior of its offensive line. So to me, that's kind of a wash. Georgia is going to have one of the best secondaries in the country. That's going to match up evenly with their receiving core. So that's kind of a wash. But then you step on the other side of the ball, you lost a lot of guys on defense, and Georgia's offense is absolutely loaded. DeAndre Swift's back. Zamir White's going to be there. James Cook's going to be there. Brian Herring's going to be there. I mean, and the reason I keep bringing Georgia up is not just because I'm familiar with Georgia, but it's because that's the monster in the East that Florida's going to have to overcome. And I don't think this year they've got the tools in the tool chest to do it. I think that this year is going to be a rebuild year for Dan Mullen. I think Dan Mullen is going to have to figure out, a way to try to make this offense work with what he's got. I think it was a poor job on him not getting these other guys in and getting them more experience. And if you look at the numbers, you can absolutely tell that they weren't swapping players in and out the way they needed to get them experience. That having been said, you got to look back and you got to say, okay, McElwain won the East 2 years in a row, had a bad year. The next year they fired him. This is the second year for Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen had an okay year last year, did not win the East. I don't believe he's going to win the East this year. Look at it. So he's got to play Auburn, LSU, Georgia, South Carolina. That is a rocky road to play. And no matter who you are, if you've got to play Auburn, LSU, Georgia back to back to back, I really don't think you're going to run that gambit. I don't think you could say with all certainty that by the time you get beat up by Auburn, you get beat up by LSU, and then you turn around and play Georgia, that you got a solid shot of winning all 3 of those games. Not if you're Alabama, not if you're Clemson. If Georgia had to turn around and play Auburn and play LSU and then play Alabama back to back to back, I'd say it'd probably be pretty tough to get through that without losing a game. I think by the time that Florida plays Auburn, they'll probably be 5-0. I think by the time they get through the Auburn, LSU, Georgia gauntlet, they'll probably lose 2 games. That's just how brutal it is. Now, Florida has a ton of talent as far as 4-star players. They've even got some 5-star players. But LSU's got a ton of 4 and 5 stars. Georgia's got a ton of 4 and 5 stars. And believe it or not, Auburn's got quite a few 4 and 5 stars. So when you get into that kind of gambit where you go from you play Miami your first year, they're probably going to be off because Manny Diaz has got, you know, a new whatever, and then you play some cupcake games, and you got to play Kentucky in there, and that'll be a revenge game for you. You know, you'll probably win that game, and you probably feel pretty good rolling in to play Auburn. But you got to play LSU at LSU, and Death Valley ain't no joke. It's not. Not many teams win there. That's going to be a tough game. By the time you get through with Georgia, you got to play, I think Missouri's thrown in there somewhere late in the season. That game's a unique matchup. I mean, that game has the potential for going the other way, so we'll see what happens. But as far as I'm concerned, I just don't see how Florida's going to dominate anything this year, and it's mainly because of the offensive line. So, by the way, guys, trying to get to 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you've made it this far, do me a favor, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. And be sure to turn on the bell or whatever it is. I don't understand how YouTube does all that stuff, but that way you get the latest, greatest, and new news from me that I run across. That way you guys can stay up to date with the news we're handing out. Don't forget, we're also going to be doing Saturday shows. How's your Saturday? We appreciate you guys for tuning in. Also have a Twitter. It's at UGA Big Dog Brett. Feel free to follow me over there. Look forward to hearing you guys down in the comment section. If you would, jump down in the comment section, let me know who you'd like for me to cover next. That'd be great to look up that information for you guys and put it into a video. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, God bless. Go Dogs.